Hi everyone, welcome to the introduction to my RTS tutorial series. My name is Zach, otherwise known as 2Neurons in the streaming community, and this introduction will cover what sets this tutorial series apart from other RTS tutorial series out there. Also, what the series will cover. So you're probably going, but Zach, there are already several tutorials out there, both paid and free. Why do we need another one for RTSs? Well, a lot of the tutorials I've looked at, there are some issues with them. There are some details missing, they're out of date, or they just simply don't work for RTSs in the end. And talking to people in the community, I've heard complaints that a lot of series out there, people just fly through what they're doing and don't explain, the logic they've used, or don't explain why they're using particular nodes or particular functions. On the other side, I've heard, from people, when they see someone who goes through everything, it tends to be the person hasn't tried it before, and it's the entire sort of trial and error process. And you get this sort of, I don't know why this isn't working, and what should be like a 20-minute video ends up being 2 hours. And that's kind of annoying to watch. While it boosts confidence and, kind of relays the fact that we all struggle with coding, it isn't enjoyable and it isn't quite useful. So I plan on taking the positive aspects from both of those and both of the methods, and trying to employ them here. So in terms of covering the nodes and explaining what's going on, I have an idea on doing this in 2 parts. First, at the start of every tutorial, I'm going to use a presentation similar to this to explain the logic and the components that we'll be working with and why those items and those things matter to us. And I sort of explore the different routes we could take with it. So that even if you don't use a particular route we've explored, you can at least take it on your own and try to create something from that. So for example, I will be introducing 2 different ways of making cameras, and I'll talk about a third one in the first lesson. In addition to this, I plan on including some issues in the code for us to catch together, or for us to explore in terms of troubleshooting, and using that to show different iterative processes to come up with the best sort of end product. And with regards to that, for example, character movement, even across the first few lectures in this series, or sorry, first few tutorials, so used to being at university, we will go through 6 different iterations, actually it's really 5 in the end, to do character movement. And some of the changes will be minor, and some will be major. And we'll explore why these sort of things come up, and how to handle problems in coding as you get further and further into it. Now, with regards to the topic areas I plan to cover, I want to address character movement, game time, and all these other sort of basic aspects that go into RTSs. Now, I am not married to the order in which these topics will be covered, and within them there are several subtopics, which I'll put up on the screen for you in a minute. But before I do so, just want to say that if you have any area you want me to cover, any sort of topic that I haven't addressed, please let me know in the comments down below. That way I can plan to include it. Or drop me a line, on Reddit or on Twitter, and, we'll try to include that. So with regards to movement, I want to include a few areas such as setting up the workflow and getting basic movement in, getting the camera to zoom in and out, and doing panning. And with these, we'll actually explore multiple ways to do that. On top of these, I also want to create sort of our own game time. And to do so, we are going to, create a HUD. We're going to create a way to record the time, and we're going to interface those 2. Now, no RTS is complete without resources. Resources are a topic area that I see covered fairly rarely in the tutorial series, and sometimes not covered at all. And, I want to bring that in. I want to talk about spawning in the resources as well, collecting them, killing the resource locations once they're emptied. And something not on here that was suggested to me prior to launching this series was actually regrowing some resources. So if you have a forest and cut it down, and you haven't put things on that land, are the trees going to grow back? And talk about how you might do that. And then, of course, we're going to talk about different ways of setting up units and NPCs and how to get them to move, how to give them variables such as names, give them health, and, setting up their sort of selection icons and working with them. Of course, we need these NPCs to do stuff. We need them to, have buildings to go into for work, to live, and so we have to talk about how we're going to create buildings. So we'll go through different methods of creating buildings. We'll have our, ghost blueprints set up so that we can put a building on them, or so we can see what a building will be placed when we set it. A proxy so that we can have a sort of another ghost building sitting there while it's waiting to be constructed, and the actual building itself. And we'll talk about how we can change certain aspects of this to, be more city builder, such as having a grid building system where you have 4 rotations, to having multiple rotations to make the environment even more unique as you see fit. And when we have all of this, we're going to want information. We're going to want to know, about our buildings. We're going to know about our NPCs. So we're going to create heads-up displays or user interfaces that will give us information on the buildings, that will give us information on the NPCs, so that we can actually see what's going on in our world from a different point of view. And then from there, we're going to get into more advanced topics. We need our NPCs, now that we have our buildings in, to find homes or to build them. We need them to find jobs. We need them to gather resources. And at this point, we're going to set up a new NPC class that will do work with advanced materials. So advanced resources that we haven't quite covered yet. And we'll cover those advanced resources in that next section. So the idea is we're going to talk about buildings that produce things, so better equipment or power. And having these buildings only work when those new NPCs are there. We'll also add cost to construction and implement advanced construction queues where people can put priority on which buildings get built when, and they can start planning when or where the buildings will be placed long before they even get to the stage of having the resources to build that particular building. And on top of this, we're going to then create more of a lifelike NPC. We're going to take 4 variables, and using these 4 variables, we're going to create a sort of rough metric of the NPC's overall happiness. Now I realize the 4 variables I've selected, fatigue, hunger, entertainment, and job satisfaction, don't really in the real world equate to happiness. But these ideas of how to combine them together to make this sort of metric is, something that you can take and use your own variables you want to use your own sort of internal traits of characters' states to explore, another rough overall metric if you wanted. And then have the NPCs respond differently based on these various traits. And we'll talk about options in terms of behavioral tree, TensorFlow, and other ways to set up our AIs. And there are, of course, some other topics I want to cover that, I haven't fully addressed before, such as fog of war, combative units, and research. And I think that research one's really important. We're talking about the sort of advanced areas in construction or in resource management. So I want to talk about unit promotion and unit upgrading. And then, of course, a lot of RTSs allow for multiple players. So I want to talk about networking for our multiplayer setup. That said, I hope to see you in the next video where we talk about setting up our camera. If you have any comments, anything you want me to cover, again, please let me know in the comments down below. And make sure to hit that subscribe and notification bell so you know when the next tutorial is up. Thank you very much, and have a lovely day.